Thank you for joining us today for On the Edge with nationally renowned military and civilian self-defense expert, author, and local businessman Kelly Warden as he talks with special guests from around the world about real-life issues, concerns, and solutions. Hold on to your seat during the next hour for On the Edge. And now, here's Kelly Warden.
Yeah, baby, rock on. You know that disclaimer don't involve me. They're not talking about me. Everybody's got my back door here in the Northwest. Yes, indeed. Well, hey, good morning, KLEY listeners. We're here in the beautiful Northwest. That means the wind isn't blowing and the rain ain't falling. So the sun's out. I'm polishing up my boat this afternoon, and I'm going to try to hit American Lake. Yes, American Lake. That's a good sound of that. You know, today's guest is a longtime martial artist and probably, correct me if I'm wrong, by calling 584-1480 at your earliest convenience, but probably the most controversial exponent in the history of martial arts. That would be Frank Dux, the writer of Bloodsport. Frank's here, and he's a leading advocate of so many different factors that it would almost make your head spin. If you get a chance while you're listening to the show, punch in Frank Dux and look at all the controversial issues surrounding him and his history and some of the things that have been documented in martial arts about him and with him. He's definitely across the board. His book, The Secret Man, has been created created a stir in the CIA. Much like Steven Seagal, little can be proven or collaborated either way. It's a long, drawn-out battle of who can override with the facts and what is the mystery and what is fiction. You know, in the movie Bloodsport, it was about the Kumite underground fighting matches in Hong Kong. Frank claims to be the undefeated record holder from 1975 to 1980. We're going to discuss that in matches that, for the most part, were hard to collaborate as well. This is part of the confusion surrounding Frank Dux and many of the claims as a covert operative in life. Before we get to Frank, I do want to share a couple things with you. If you checked out the News Tribune on the front page, man, we got little gangsters playing, this sounds like a 30s robbery. These guys have robbed 16 stores in 22 days. They're dressed in blue and black. They're wearing bandanas. Gee, if that don't give them away when they walk in the store. If you see these guys, you might want to head for the nearest exit and just call 911. That's what the local police department's for, keeping a track on these guys. Of course, surveillance cameras have picked these guys up. But in their recent robberies, they've hit the Safeway on 6th Avenue, which is a big, big store. So to cover all those doors, cover all those exits, these guys apparently don't have any conscience. They're just out to get money for probably sex, drugs, and rock and roll and everything that goes along with little gangsters. They've also hit the Bridgeport Way Safeway. They've hit the Safeway on East 72nd Street. They've hit 2 7-Elevens, a Blockbuster Video. Actually, there's another 7-Eleven they hit on Pacific Avenue. Another Blockbuster Video. They've hit Hollywood Video, Barbecue Pete's, Taco Bell. They're pulling no punches. They're all armed with automatic weapons. And, if you see them, shoot them on sight. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that because that's a little controversial, and that might be why they say that disclaimer at the beginning of my show. My God, I'm telling you, I'm jumping out of this chair. I want to share one more thing with you. Hey, I got an email. Hi, Datu Kelly Warden. No, I probably didn't talk like that, but his name is Eric Harris. He's 20 years old, martial artist from Cartersville, Georgia. I was born with a mild case of disability called cerebral palsy, but that doesn't stop me from doing anything I want, he says. I've studied various fighting systems over the past 15 years, including Kempo Karate, Aikido, Ninjutsu, Jeet Kune Do, Kali, and Eskrima. I've been a student of modern arnis and knife fighting for almost 7 years now. Unfortunately, my Kali and modern arnis instructor went out of business 2 years ago, so I've been trying to teach myself. I really want to become a certified instructor for the disabled. Seems like if he's been training 15 years, something's wrong with his teachers, that they haven't qualified him or brought him up to par to where he has the capability. Many times in the Filipino martial arts, this is just me expounding here for a minute, many times in the Filipino martial arts, if you know one more technique than the guy standing next to you, you are the teacher. So too much has been put off on this, I need to be certified, I need to be qualified. Jeet Kune Do is guilty of this, too. If Bruce Lee was actually alive today, he would wonder why people are adding to the format instead of shedding it away to find the practicality and the functional aspects of it. But anyway, Eric would like to become a certified instructor. Is there any possible way that I could train him over the net? My answer to that is probably no, and I know Eric will be listening to this show on my website. But I did write Eric, and I'm sending him some videotapes so he'll have some new material to go. He says, I really respect what you do. Would be an honor to train with you or under you. Please, please, please. Sounds like a Beatles song. Consider me, and please, please, please get back to me as soon as possible. P.S. Your radio show rules. Well, thanks, Eric. Definitely good email. If you want to email me about anything, you can do that at Kelly S. Warden, that's WORDEN, at Comcast.net. Don't forget to go to my website, www.kellywarden.com, and you can punch on Hear This Radio Show or hear any of the radio shows that we've got archived over the last year, even some of the older shows from 1999. Anyway, you know what? I'm going to bring Frank in. Also joining me and Frank is Keith Klinkhammer, and Keith is a friend of Frank's, and also we're going to be addressing some of the issues that Keith is bringing to the table with us. Anyway, Frank, we hear you kicking through those papers. What's happening with you today, baby?
Right now I'm involved in some pretty outstanding projects, in the sense that they're very challenging. One of the things is I'm working on a project that will probably amalgamate the entire martial arts industry based on a whole new technology that I plan to introduce into the market. Also working on a campaign to put an end to world hunger.
That's pretty big steps, man. I know Keith is involved with you on that. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
All right. One of the things we'll go through, let's hit this since we got 3 segments of the show. Let's go to history. Frank, you were renowned as the founder of the first American ninjutsu system. There again, tradition, America, people not understanding tradition. That's a pretty bold step to step up and say you created your own system, even back in, I believe, 1980.
Well, actually, I wasn't the one to actually say that. That was actually said by the editors of Black Belt magazine in 1980, before there was this ninja craze bonanza monopoly going on. It was being commercialized at the time. There was very few people at the time actually teaching ninjutsu, and I was doing it long before there was a craze and even people knew about it. I remember people who used to walk into my school and say, "You mean jujitsu, don't you?" and laugh about it. They didn't have any idea what it was. And ninjutsu has, by its own history, is very fragmented, and it has its own individual cells, and it's usually just a family kind of art. The term ninjutsu is really kind of archaic. It just means eclectic forms, no different than what Bruce Lee was kind of basically preaching and talking about. You know, using what's useful, dispensing, and getting rid of what's not, and going on a world of your own self-discovery. So, as far as the term ninjutsu, no, I never claimed to be this traditionalist that people have tied into. That came later when, like I said, these people are running around saying, "Oh, we're the only ones in history. We're the only ones who have these scrolls," and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The Koga scrolls.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they have the Koga. They have the Bansen Shukai, which is the ego lineage is tied to that, et cetera. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, you know, in ninjutsu, what brought you to that? I have some actual practitioners that train under Hatsumi Sensei, and much of what you said is true. Ninjutsu is based out of subsystem development, meaning flexible weapons, earth, fire, wind, aspects dealing with the natural elements of the earth. And at the same token, it's also a covert art, meaning in many ways it was brought out as the art of assassination. But what brought you into ninjutsu, and why did you follow that path?
Well, I followed the path mainly because of my instructor. I mean, that was his family lineage and history, and that's what he called it. And I trained with him, and so therefore I use that as, I guess, my art form. But I trained in many different styles, many different systems. You know, one of my great teachers was Jack Secchi, who was one of the world leading authorities in jiu-jitsu at the time. He trained Seki himself was trained directly under Professor Kono, the inventor of judo. So, I've trained with a number of people, and there's a number of people that I owe much of my knowledge to. I would say a good example is Bill Ryosaki, who's the teacher of many, many well-known champions. The difference is, though, in my case, I came from kind of an underprivileged family, and I would walk about a mile out of my way from school, or after school, and I would go to Bill's dojo. Was located on Lancashire Boulevard there in North Hollywood, inside what we call the Valley of the Champions, because during that era, and Bruce Lee would be there working out. I would watch, I'd look, I'd practice on the asphalt. I mean, that was my mat. And it's interesting because Bill and me laugh about it today, but he would to show you the kindness this man showed me. He would know when I was coming. He would crack the blinds so I could look in and watch the class, and he would watch me. And then, of course, every time he would come out to invite me to come in and train, I would run away from him. It wasn't until many, many years later that we were kind of reunited, and we talk and we laugh about the experience, because I'm a grown man, obviously, right now.
Sure. Yeah, and Bill's not quite as big as you, so you're probably not running nearly as fast. But Bill's got a great reputation as a phenomenal martial artist, a very personable individual, and I had the pleasure of meeting him, I guess a couple months ago down in California, when I went to the House of Champions seminar. Let's get back. Grew up in L.A. Many people have looked at your art and said it is more jiu-jitsu based than it is ninjutsu. But there again, I've also read that it has a lot of elements of boxing in it. Much of it is based off of quick closing skills, much similar to Bruce Lee. Stance is similar to what Bruce Lee used as far as getting off the ground real quick, bridging the distance, that type of stuff. There again, being an American, integrating so many different arts at that point in time, that to some degree is very controversial as well. So bringing or drawing on that, how do you distinguish the difference between your ninjutsu and what they prefer or have said about jiu-jitsu?
Well, jiu-jitsu's got its own discipline. I have my own eclectic attitude that I bring to the martial arts. I think everyone, when you reach a certain level, you start to, become a summation of your experiences and a summation of the knowledge you've acquired, and it affects you. It affects your performance, as well as your own individual body types, your own abilities, and your own reasoning. Your own creative sensibilities. So, yeah, I've been very creative with my style. Again, I used only ninjutsu as an umbrella word. There's been a lot of confusion regarding that. As far as my history goes, yes, I can tie my history back to my instructor, who goes all the way back to, he's documented his uncle's Kushinika Tanaka, who's documented in the 1930s running the intelligence arm for Japan out of England. I mean, the guy exists. It's documented fact. It's provable. The family's provable. People have tried to assert that isn't the case, but there's enough evidence out there to prove otherwise. In regards to talking about ninjutsu, I brought in today a letter that was written in 1980 by John Stewart, who's head of the editor of Black Belt Magazine. This is where all this kind of started, so I thought maybe let's just start at the source.
Sure, here you go, man. This is for everybody listening. Rainbow Publications, and it is dated in 1980. What year is this?
This is, I think it's September 1980.
Okay. To whom it may concern, with the popularity of the secret art of ninjutsu on the rise, there are dozens of martial artists appearing to present themselves as experts on the way of the ninja. However, the fact is that there are only two genuine non-Oriental ninja known in the world today, and one of them lives in Japan. The other is Frank Dux. Dux is a professional consultant in the field of martial arts, a full-contact Kumite champion, and the instructor of some impressive students. He is also an expert of setting up and performing stunts of all kinds, both real and illusionary. There are other martial artists who will insist they are familiar with ninjutsu, but it is important to have access to the real thing. Frank Dux is your man. It is important to discuss this further. You may contact me at the address on our letterhead, John Stewart, editor of Black Belt Magazine. interesting enough, of course, black belt does a certain degree of history. Most martial artists in today, and I think that's probably the controversy going out there on the internet, is everybody seems to be a historian of martial arts, but sometimes you can't always find the answer you want. I've got some good friends that are phenomenal martial artists, but to go back and try to track exactly where they came from, I like to say many of them in the martial arts industry are masters of rape, rob, and pillage. And that's in the sense of stealing techniques, that is, guys and boys and girls. But, Frank, you had mentioned that you were from not a real well-to-do family. I kind of follow that same thing. Being a hometown T-town boy right here in Tacoma, I experienced those same things. It was more about the butt-whooping I got and then understanding and practicing later and grabbing and stealing techniques from people that I ran with. And many times in my early martial arts career, I was like the only white kid running with the pack. I called my art, as I developed, poor boy JKD. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Frank Dux, and I'm going to bring Keith in also because I have some questions for him about the credibility of Mr. Frank Dux, and we'll roll from there. This is Kelly Warden, Frank Dux, and Keith. KLAY 1180 on the Edge. We'll be right back. 584-1480 on your listening dial.
Blade Tech Industries is a leading manufacturer of custom thermoplastic and injection molded tactical outdoor products. Need pistol holders, knife sheaths, rifle mag pouches, or custom-made accessories? Contact Blade Tech Industries. Made from specially formulated polymer, stronger and more heat-resistant than commonly used materials. Blade Tech's products are used worldwide by law enforcement, military, civilians, and government agencies. Contact Blade Tech Industries at 253-581-4347 or contact them on the web at bladetech.com. When you're having problems keeping your business records straight and need some help in the old accounting department, call the firm that's at home helping businesses like yours succeed. Call on the services of Oveston Howard, CPAs, for accounting, bookkeeping, business, and individual tax return preparation, financial, and estate planning, or maybe just to answer an accounting question. Turn to the professionals at Oveston Howard for the right answers. They can help increase your bottom line. Call the certified public accountants at Oveston Howard, 472-6211 today. Bullseye Shooter Supply and Indoor Range has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, shooting supplies, and accessories in the Northwest. Check out their new showroom. Looking for a great indoor pistol range complete with everything, including pistol rentals? Visit Bullseye's Indoor Range. At Bullseye Shooter Supply and Indoor Range, there are no bull prices and no bull service. Visit their new showroom and indoor pistol range 7 days a week. Be a responsible gun owner. Bullseye Shooter Supply and Indoor Range is in downtown Tacoma by Freight House Square at 414 Puyallup Avenue.
Executive self-defense is all about living in today's society. It's about training yourself in ways that work for you. You become more confident because you are able to defend yourself and your family. You're more of an asset to your business. Natural Spirit International is looking for students like you. Instructor Kelly Warden, world-renowned martial artist, law enforcement, and military instructor, is accepting students sincere in learning executive self-defense. For affordable classes, call 253-564-2867 and visit Natural Spirit's discreet University Place gym.
Gatco, the American tool company, has the highest quality knives and sharpeners on the market today, like the Warden-designed Wartac Tactical Folder and Supreme Series, with massive stainless steel liners, perfect blade pivot geometry, and secure grip handle design. These formidable tools will satisfy the performance needs of demanding professionals. Gatco's knife sharpeners offers superior design and reliability even on serrated blades. Contact Great American Tool Company 1-800-548-7427 or visit them on the web at timberlineknives.com.
1180 KLAY, your conversation station.
Rocking on with Stevie Ray Vaughan, sitting in the sunshine with a microphone in my face. That's Kelly Warden on the Edge, KLAY 1180, and that music is still kicking. Where's my technician? Tom, turn that music down. Yeah, baby. Tom must like that song, too. Probably likes that song better than the sound of my voice, apparently. Anyway, thanks, Tom, for being right there for me. I know you got my back door, unlike that disclaimer says. I know you work for me. But anyway, we're back. And, we were just talking about Frank Dux' credibility factor here. One of the things I want to do is go, everybody, I need you to research this. If you're interested in this, research it. Go back, you'll find so much stuff. Frank's got a website called duxryu.8.m.com. That's .8m.com. And you can go in there, and there's a section called Controversy where he addresses a lot of issues. Of course, this is Controversy, him addressing his side or his answer to the game. And there again, unless we had an audience or an auditorium and an opportunity to put everybody in front of people to address their controversies, that's another thing. I've been banged on hard on the internet. It's real easy to sit behind a keyboard with a pair of pantyhose, lipstick, and greasy hands and type about stuff that you don't either know about or, hey, I know, I've heard a lot of things about this. I think I'll make myself famous and I'll challenge this guy's credibility too. So, I mean, it works both ways. You know, some people are right about me. I will kick your booty if you get in my face. Other people will say, yeah, he dated my sister. You know, but hey, what else can I say? And he dated my wife, but I'm married now and I'm happy, so leave me alone. Honey, I love you. Anyway, getting on. I'm all over the board today, ain't I, guys? Anyway, we're going to bring in Keith Klinkhammer, and, you know, this is just something I want to share. Keith is not a martial artist, but he is doing some research, and him and Frank got some projects together. So one thing I did touch with Keith this morning was, man, don't you know how controversial Frank is? Are you sure you want to go in business with him? So, Keith, address that. Bring yourself into the microphone.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I should say, first of all, that I met Frank as a friend, just through friends in L.A. 3 years back, and that's originally how I got to know Frank. And then, of course, I got to know about his reputation. I, of course, heard about the controversy. And as a friend, I seen... And as you say, I'm not a martial arts expert, and I'm not involved in the industry. And a lot of the controversy you speak about, I don't have as much information about it as you probably do, or others on the internet that are listening now. But Frank had a lot of character, and we looked at some of the things that we could do from a business standpoint with his name, and the movie Bloodsport being about his life. We heard about the controversy, too, and, of course, wanted to do our due diligence. And as owners of a couple companies, we had the resources to do that. And we went out and are very satisfied with the work that we've done about Frank, his credibility, and what his name can bring to the table. Of course, whenever you have a figure like Frank Dux and a true legend, there's a lot of people that come out of the woodwork to try to bolster their own agendas that'll falsify information and stuff, and I believe that's what we're seeing in a lot of these cases that at least I'm aware of, and that's fine. I mean, it creates more press, so I think the truth will come out, and there's some very exciting worldwide projects that are going to be great for the martial arts industry that I think Frank's going to be at the forefront of, that are going to play out over time, and that's where I think we'd like to be able to see our research and what we believe to come true is what's going to happen and how history unfolds.
Now, you are a successful businessman, is that true?
Yes.
So, you're not going to throw your dough into somebody that's a flaky Jake, right?
Well, and it's not only that. In business, you're only as good as your relationship, and I have to put my name out and introduce Frank to other people who have many times more money than me that will have to put their money out and will evaluate that. And, of course, it's all about, you know, being able to keep those relationships and not being able to involve with people that are scandalous or that don't have the credibility. And that's very important to us, as you would know.
Now, is Frank just a smooth-talking scam man? He sucked you in, or did you really approach him?
Actually, it was more. It was
Sorry,
more
Frank. I'm in smacking distance here, man. We got the smackdown at KLAY.
As I said, it was just friends at first, but as I seen the people that would come around him and gather around him and be aware of his name, as we just go out to places in Los Angeles, just on a friend level with personal friends of mine, I began to see that there was more there. Not being from the martial arts industry, I had no idea. So as I did more research, of course, I found out about the controversy. But no, I really started to gravitate towards Frank at the time. A couple years ago, 3 years ago, when we first met him, we were both busy on different things and we didn't hook up. But now, probably over the next couple months, we'll be, you know, doing the little dog and pony shows in New York and Los Angeles and stuff with people that Frank already has that are gravitated towards him. The people that he already has that are aware of his name, the business stature that these people carry, their willingness to come to the table and invest substantial amounts of money in his name is impressed me more than anything.
Huh. Well, you know, that's got to count for something. So, you guys that are listening out there again, you're going to make your own judgmental call. You'll make your own judgmental call on me. And I'm a good-looking, handsome man that's done just about everything, including walk old ladies across the street. So, you know, moving on from there, I'm gonna jump into the history of Bloodsport. This is one of the things that brought Frank into the public eye. I can't remember what year it was done, but I think everybody's watched it that's a martial artist today. Of course, everybody's got their own feelings about Jean-Claude Van Damme, but in many ways, none of us look as good as Jean-Claude Van Damme, so there's a reason probably why he's an actor. I know he loves martial arts or he wouldn't portray them, but this isn't really necessarily about Jean-Claude because he's not here. Frank, how did that come about, the connection with Jean-Claude and the movie production Bloodsport?
Well, first of all, Bloodsport came about through a friend of mine named Sheldon Lettich. We'd done a short film called Firefight together, and Sheldon was editing his film, and he was seated beside another gentleman by the name of Mark DeSalle, who was editing one of his films at the same facility, and they got around to talking. And Mark DeSalle had heard about all these illegal fights going on, and he'd heard of my name, and he was trying to find me. He wanted to do a movie on kickboxing. And Sheldon just started laughing. He says, well, who's in my film? He says, what? Frank Dux, the guy you're looking for. And the next thing you know, I met Mark DeSalle, and then Mark DeSalle, started doing his due diligence because nobody's going to throw millions of dollars behind a project. Canon Films was going to throw millions of dollars behind a project because they had a fiduciary duty, as well as, they could be criminally prosecuted if they're promoting a fraud. And they did their due diligence. I held up. I presented fight tapes. They met other fighters and doing the research of the project. At that time, I used to have programs, if you would, little brochures of the fights, whatever, announcements. And that's how it came about. It wasn't like, everybody forgets, in those days, it wasn't so organized like you have today. You didn't have, Black Belt Magazine in those days was, a small periodical, probably the only one in existence. You didn't have Inside Kung Fu around. You didn't have any of these things. And we were just, grassroots, starting out. There was a million associations. My fight history, the reason Bloodsport came about is because I got known in the San Fernando Valley, and as well as in certain circles where people would bet great sums of money. No different than you have sometimes these underground dog fights you see today. Can you go find them? Not really, unless you're in that circle. But they exist.
I know there's fights existing right now because one of my students contacted me and he goes, hey, what am I going to do? My son, I'm not going to mention his name, who's only 17 years old, is out there in parking lots fighting men that are 20, 24, 25 years old. He's kicking their booty. But, my student was more concerned with his son and his safety, and not only that, his career as a progressive national and California state wrestling champion. So at age 17, he's leaving Burger King and going out winning some money and fighting men in underground parking lot fights on blacktop.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I was involved in. And there, at that time period, there's about 6-7 really big promoters of the fights that had real substantial circles of influence. And I would move from I was one of the few guys who actually moved from one little circle to another circle to another circle, and then eventually they all decided, well, let's all get together here and let's have one big event every 5 years where everybody will bring in their kind of best fighters and throw them into one thing. We'll all divide up the pot. And that's exactly what happened, and that's the history of what it was. And some of the people who fought in Kumite, who saw me fight, good examples, Ed Parker's nephews were Kumite fighters and knew of me. Ed saw me fight. The head of Warner Brothers from I think he was head of publicity and advertising for Warner Brothers. He was one of Bruce Lee's friends. He actually was the guy who introduced Bruce Lee to Steve McQueen, Joe Cinda. I have a transcript of him in a documentary that was being done on me where Bruce Lee even had heard of me when I was a kid because of what was going around. I told you at Bill Rizaki School that I was faster and quicker, and he wanted to find me, and that led to actually him going to one of my fights and actually seeing me fight, and he talks about it. So the proof is there. It's always been there. People have accused me of it. I've had actual law enforcement agencies investigate me over the claims. They walked away feeling comfortable that I substantiated that what I have to say is true. And it's easy for someone to say, sit back like we were talking about and type from their little spot and say, all these things. And then the reality is, the reason I'm still probably around today is because I've got the goods to back up what it is I'm doing. And that shows through in all the work I've done and all the opportunities I've done. And they speak for themselves.
So much of the fights were in California themselves, but how did Hong Kong come into the game?
Well, actually, I only had very few fights in California. I really fought. My first fight was in Tijuana. In fact, let me tell you the story of how Bloodsport came about. Okay?
Rock on, baby.
I was 19 years old, and it was like my first set of fights. And there was only going to be about 6 of us fighting in the small little competition, and it took place in the junkyard in Tijuana. They took a bunch of tires through like 2x4s and built a platform on top of it, with plywood and whatever they could scrap together. That was our platform, okay? And
sounds like the downtown boys club where I was training years ago.
So all these guys gathered around, and there was only 5 of us. It wasn't 6. So they couldn't figure out they were going to do a buy or they were going to go get somebody. And then there was rumors starting that they were went to the mental institution to get somebody from there. So we're all standing around, and I'm, a young kid, and I'm getting really kind of nervous. And the one way I fight, for me, I fight, my feelings of nervousness is I use a lot of humor sometimes. And so I immediately started doing this Howard Cosell imitation and said, here we are, at the Red Cross, blood drive, blood sport, where everyone's guaranteed to give an ounce, Yeah.
There's some truth to that, though.
And that's where that whole term came from. And then when we were sitting around with Mark DeSalle, he was trying to think of a name and a title for the movie. I said, well, why don't you call it Bloodsport?
In your best Howard Cosell voice. Could you do Howard for us?
I don't even remember Howard anymore.
Yeah, that's the truth. They kind of slipped past it. But today's youth would go, who's Howard Cosell?
But, that's the kind of thing. And people remember me over the years from fighting. I mean, I'll give you an example. I was supposed to be inducted in the Action Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and it was in Atlantic City in 2001. And
Alec Goldberg runs that, I think.
Yeah, Alan Goldberg. Or Goldberg, yeah.
Something like that.
And anyways, they had asked me to come and be a guest, and they were going to pick up some awards and what have you. And I was in Thailand at the time, and Sim Pop, and all of you who don't know who that is, he's like the Howard Cosell of the Muay Thai world. An ex-champion and a huge announcer for all of Asia. And I was asked to actually take his place, after he died, by the Thai people. My picture still hangs in Mabini Stadium over there from when I fought in the 1970s. I was one of the first Caucasian Muay Thai fighters that ever, or studied Muay Thai to fight there and actually fought some of the guys. And it was quite an honor because I was the guy actually seen on national television handing out, a wreath of flowers for the world champion and acknowledging that this guy's the world champion, which was kind of funny in itself because when it first started, I greeted the athletes at the beginning of the fight. This one guy was kind of confused, and he heard this, thing, world champion. I guess he was the contender. And I walk into the ring, and he comes in, and he's about half my size. He's looking up at me with this worried face, like, I got to fight him.
Well, you were big, definitely, for, Southeast Asian fighters. Let's address that. We talked that in a private conversation that, yesteryear's fighters weren't nearly what we're getting in the UFC, and of course, all you got to do is watch some of the HBO specials. Like trying to think of the fighter they did on him, UFC fighter, steroids and painkillers and everything else. The fighters weren't nearly as big back then.
Oh no! I mean, I'll give you an example. It was interesting too. Back then, I was really challenged. People would attack me again because of my training methods, because I believe in weight training. Okay, I believe in and they said in those days, if you recall, one of the things was, oh no, if you're a purist, you don't do weights.
Yeah, pure martial artist.
Yeah, it slows you down, which is not true.
Yeah, that's true. You can bulk up, that would probably slow you down, but actually it increases your speed and your reflexes and so on and so forth. That fighter I was discussing on HBO special was Mark Kerr, UFC fighter, that was just loaded on steroids, painkillers, and everything else. Apparently they weren't doing any urinalysis because he'd be urine trouble. But, nonetheless, Frank, okay, let's go back then. What was your fighting weight? You're a big boy now.
When they declared me world champion, see, I wasn't the guy who run around and say, okay, I'm world champion. But when one promoter basically said, you're champion of the world, and I was the best because I'd fought in all these different circles, like I told you, and I beat everybody. And, I was fighting in about 225, 210. I'd change between the two. And I'm, 6'2", but I have the girth of a guy who's like 6'4", so I'm a pretty, broad-shouldered kind of guy. Was then, but I had more of a swimmer's body. So my whole attitude was speed. He who gets there the fastest with the mostest wins. That was my general attitude.
Actually, some of your old pictures, you kind of look like Mark Spitz, the Olympic swimmer. You're built kind of long and lean and so on and so forth. I had some guy tell me, hey, Frank was a handsome man when he was younger. I goes, is that in a gay, homosexual way or what? Come on now. He goes, no, strictly as a fighter. I'm just saying Frank was a good-looking guy and got to where he got to. But, hey, let's move on. What about Van Damme? What was it like working with him, and did he portray what you wanted him to portray as far as the movie Bloodsport? Is there a Tong Po? Was there a Tong Po? And could somebody get Keith some water? Poor guy.
Well, to give you an idea, starting with Van Damme, I mean, the reason he got the part is Sheldon and me had gone to see a movie, and the movie was called No Retreat, No Surrender. And Sheldon actually was the one who brought it to my attention because
he was a European hitman. They shut down karate schools then.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. But the thing that hit Sheldon and what was so striking, and I want to put before you an old picture of me. This is me in 1975. Now, if you look right here, you can see that
there's a little bit of familiarity there. You guys look pretty close. So there you are with a shot with Bolo Yung. Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so...
But he's much smaller than you.
Oh, absolutely. No, he was sort of like a smaller version, which worked out because the fighters I fought were pretty big, even though they were Asians. A lot of people think Asians are small, but if you go to northern China, I mean, come on, the world's biggest basketball player today, if I'm not mistaken, is Asian. So that kind of defeats that whole stereotype.
All right, man, there's our kick-in music. We're going to go to a station break and get a word from our sponsors, pump some water into Keith. We'll be right back with Frank Dux and Keith Klinkhammer, Kelly Warden. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bloodsport, and move on to the secret man, Frank Dux. Kelly Warden on the Edge, KLAY 1180, 584, 1480 on your listening dial.
Executive self-defense is all about living in today's society. It's about training yourself in ways that work for you. You become more confident because you are able to defend yourself and your family. You're more of an asset to your business. Natural Spirit International is looking for students like you. Instructor Kelly Warden, world-renowned martial artist, law enforcement, and military instructor, is accepting students sincere in learning executive self-defense. For affordable classes, call 253-564-2867 and visit Natural Spirit's Discreet University Place Gym.
Just when you think you've tried everything under the sun to get rid of your nagging and consistent pain, you hear somebody mention
Perfect Balance Massage Therapy and Emotional Counseling.
Forget the pills, cancel the surgery, and do your body a favor. Go see Mike Summers at Perfect Balance. Mike has a wide range of experience helping people just like you feel better.
Perfect Balance Massage Therapy and Emotional Counseling.
Call Perfect Balance Massage Therapy and Emotional Counseling at 759-6803. Blade Tech Industries is a leading manufacturer of custom thermoplastic and injection-molded tactical outdoor products. Need pistol holders, knife sheaths, rifle mag pouches, or custom-made accessories? Contact Blade Tech Industries. made from specially formulated polymer, stronger and more heat-resistant than commonly used materials. Blade Tech's products are used worldwide by law enforcement, military, civilians, and government agencies. Contact Blade Tech Industries at 253-581-4347 or contact them on the web at bladetech.com. Bullseye Shooter Supply and Indoor Range has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, shooting supplies, and accessories in the Northwest. Check out their new showroom. Looking for a great indoor pistol range complete with everything, including pistol rentals? Visit Bullseye's Indoor Range. At Bullseye Shooter Supply and Indoor Range, there are no bull prices and no bull service. Visit their new showroom and indoor pistol range 7 days a week. Be a responsible gun owner. Bullseye Shooter Supply and Indoor Range is in downtown Tacoma by Freight House Square at 414 Puyallup Avenue. Catco, the American Tool Company, has the highest quality knives and sharpeners on the market today, like the Warden-designed Wartac Tactical Folder and Supreme Series, with massive stainless steel liners, perfect blade pivot geometry, and secure grip handle design. These formidable tools will satisfy the performance needs of demanding professionals. Gatco's knife sharpeners offers superior design and reliability even on serrated blades. Contact Great American Tool Company 1-800-548-7427 or visit them on the web at timberlineknives.com.
1180 KLAY, your conversation station.
All right. That sounded very freaky, didn't it? Kelly Warden here. Frank Dukes, back to Jean-Claude. What about Tong Po? Tong Po scared everybody to death. I think all martial artists here in America were going, God, I hope I don't bump into Tong Po. But, yeah, did you ever run into a dude like Tong Po in your fights?
Well, you mean Chong Li or Tong Po's from the kickboxer series that he did.
Exactly.
At Tong Po's actually Michel Kisi, who's the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy who gets his, Capoeira guy, in Bloodsport, who ends up with his his knee broken and stomped by Chong Li. It's actually the same person.
He actually did a lot of movies with Von Damme, I believe.
Oh, they were childhood friends, and then they had a serious falling out, and as did I, obviously, with Jean-Claude.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we in all defense of the guy, he when I first met him, was a very industrious, hardworking guy. He trained with me for 3 months before the film, and then he got caught up in that Hollywood lifestyle, and it destroyed him. It ate him alive, and he's never been the same person since.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm not sure if there's a lot more questions about Bloodsport. I do know that it has become a cult classic, so to speak, and I think in that regard, surely you must be happy with it. Now, did you collaborate on that to write it, or did you do all the writing yourself?
No, I collaborate. The actual writing credit goes to Sheldon Lettich, but I collaborated, obviously. Sheldon went through, like I said, remember the old programs that we had of the fights.
Now, how about Romancing the Stone? Of course, because I'm involved right now with writing some script on a couple different movies, but part of it is entertainment, part of it is reality, and part of reality is to scare the heck out of somebody, at the same token entertain them and educate them. So I mean, a movie that touches on all those factors, and at the same token a certain degree of fantasy, how much fantasy is involved in this and how much reality, and give us the value line of this.
Well, I didn't sleep with a gal before a fight, I can tell you that much. The fact that I could take a coin out of somebody's hand and replace it, that's a fact. I used to do that. A lot of guys have seen me do that. That's something Bruce Lee used to do. And actually, that's where I was actually inspired by him doing that to learn how to do that.
Is that where David Carradine got the snatch the pebble from my hand, grasshopper?
I think so. I think that's exactly where that comes from, because I think Lee was one of the writers, or came up with the concept of Kung Fu. And a lot of people forget that. The Showtime, when they were releasing it on cable, they did a special on Bloodsport in 1989, I believe. And they took actual fight footage that I had available at that time, and they played it, side by side. You got to see the fight footage in the movie, and they did a comparison to the actual fight of how the guy went down. So, I mean, it exists. It was there,
Sure. Well, there again, getting back to the entertainment value. Of course, you have to add depth to it. You have to. There again, I guess the depth of what you were touching on was you got to sleep with the beautiful girl before the fight. Well, or Van Damme did anyway. But
I think it was portrayed more in a grandiose way than what it really is. I mean, it's very close to that. There's a lot of formality when we did the Kumite the way I did the one that I had my championship in. But if you see the movie Lionheart, the majority of the fights that took place there is more reflective of my fight career. They were really, basically, I'd have one fight every couple of days. A guy would set it up. I'd go into somebody's pool. We'd have it at an ice rink. We'd have it, on a blacktop.
How about injuries? What about injuries?
Well, we didn't know too much in those days that, if you got knocked out, you needed to wait 6 weeks or what have you. And that's why there was a lot of deaths associated with Kumite, because guys would get a concussion, and of course, 3 days later they're back at it fighting again, and they drop dead 6 months later.
Well, in the movie you were chased down the alley by the CIA or some operatives. What's the truth of that?
Well, the truth is I was working at that time, but that's something that Mark DeSalle decided to throw in there, and believe me, it cost me a lot of grief, because at the time I was involved in some covert off-the-books kind of stuff. People come to you when you've got certain skills in life, just no different if you're a great carpenter. They're going to come knock on your door and say, hey, could you do this for me? Could you do that for me? I know you know this person. What's it worth it to you if you give me an introduction? And that's basically what happened. And a lot of guys who I used to fight came from certain circles, and certainly it attracted a certain element that was necessary in those years if you were going to run guns to the Contras, for example. You have guys who are smugglers attending your fights, and you can get to know them. Well, guess what? You want to meet them. You want to meet them in a certain environment. You want to be able to turn around and say, hey, remember me, and would you be doing this? Would you be willing to do this for me?
OA. That means okay to me in my Spanking the Gang best imitation. Yeah, okay. Secret Man, Frank Dux, An American Warrior's Uncensored Story. CIA's finest covert operative, the subject of the martial arts film Bloodsport, a bridge to international organized crime. What's the deal, man? You've get banged hard on this one, all the way across the board.
Oh, yeah, I mean, fiction's never a needed denial. That's the way I look at it. The evidence is there. It supports itself. I mean, I came out with a book, and you got to understand, I wrote this book on my deathbed. I was suffering from a brain tumor at that time. I wasn't expected to live. I had spinal meningitis. I was coming in and out. I ended up actually in a coma eventually. And the book was actually assembled by a guy named Scott Davis, because I actually didn't even finish to really write the full text of it, because I was so ill. They went ahead and they published it, and of course I got better, and then of course I came out promoting the book. One of the things that I get upset about, it says the CIA's finest covert operative. I never claimed to be a card-carrying agent, never have. Did I work at that time doing that stuff? Of course I did. A lot of guys did. We had the Bolin and Logan amendments that basically had a stranglehold on the intelligence community being able to do anything, which is idiotic, if you ask me. I'm very proud of what I did. It was this country was involved in 5 secret wars at that time period. Congress actually had to force the Pentagon to acknowledge that they sent 5,000 combat troops to El Salvador. People don't even know that to this day. So yeah. I was involved in a lot of things, and it's unfortunate that there's a political undertone to what I had to say. It rubbed the grain of a lot of people, because again, what did I do? I'm talking about how the U.S. intelligence community basically thumbed its nose at the Congress, and that's what the book is really about. Also, I talk about in the book about certain people who abused their authority, that were actually working under the color of authority to commit crimes. And when you're in a covert environment, no, the FBI is not going to be called in because of the political ramifications are too embarrassing to the government. How could they be called in? Yet they try to say, oh, we would handle it this way or we handle it that way, which is ridiculous. Also, another underlying tone of my book is I talked about Saddam Hussein and all these guys making these saber rattlings of having these weapons of mass destruction that were out there and were being procured, and one of which was a lost biological weapon that the Soviets claimed to have lost, that I was involved in tracking. And at the end of it, I talk about my book. I said, no, I think it was a bogus BS deal. I don't think it was lost. I don't think it existed. I think it was something that was created, and it was created for the purposes of, like Saddam Hussein, to be able to keep the rest of the Arab world kind of at bay, maybe even Iran at bay, saying we had this kind of mass destruction so they wouldn't be invaded when they were, it was toe-to-toe with the Iranian war that they had going on at that time, as well as we had a long-term aim in this country, if you remember, and we're seeing it now, with President Bush and other people justifying our invasion of Iraq because of these so-called rumors of him attaining these weapons of mass destruction. And of course, my theory flies in the face of that. So of course I'm going to collect a tremendous amount of heat, political heat. And this is one thing I want to add. If I was so full of it, why did the CIA find it necessary to interfere with ABC Primetime that did a special on me and shut down that special? Because, like I said before, fiction is never in need of denial. And that's the reality.
Well, I'm sitting here with Frank Dux. Keith, you're here. He's either really smooth and completely whacked, or, have you taken a lie detector, brother? What's up?
I'll take one. I have no problems with that. The evidence is there. The whole point is, the evidence is there. I can substantiate what it is I'm saying. And, a good example is people say, oh, I was only a reservist and I as a communicator. Well, sorry, I've got a DD-214 that shows that I was an intelligence specialist. Now, I can't have no control over somebody coming in and rewriting my military records. That's the reality. I don't control that. The military does. Now the question is, why do they go through the trouble of rewriting it? Why do they take away the schools I went to? You want to subpoena in the instructors I was in front of? Bring them in. Classmates, I can bring them in. See, you can eradicate certain things in life. You can eradicate documents, you can play with things, but you can't eradicate actual past events and the people who are there, the witnesses there. That's what the Nazis tried to do. That's what Nuremberg was about. Oh, it never happened. This never happened. Well, I have news for you. It did happen. And here are the witnesses, and here's the footage, and here's the evidence to prove it happened.
Keith, you had something you wanted to share.
Well, yeah, and of course I met him in L.A., and it's La La Land, and everybody's got a story, and you got to sort through that, and that's the biggest problem. But the best way to tell, just on the surface, is just look at the people that they have relationships with. Many of these people, it's only people that they've met in the last... They don't have long-term relationships with people. Frank goes back and has friends that have been with him for years and years. And it's, if you look at all the... the things that are great to talk about, and they sound very colorful and stuff, but if you look at his life's body of work and the amount of documentation that he's produced, written forms that he sits out and types out himself, thousands and thousands of pages of content on the martial arts and things that are honorable and things that have to do with his interests that go beyond the martial arts and the charitable donation type approach to most of his work that he has, that he threads through it, ties back to the way that you can see that tracks back to his long-term relationships. And his approach to the whole thing that has to do with the spirit, the body, mind and the body type thing. And, he's even looking at right now a line of nutritional products that bring into the whole thing and feeding hungry people, things like that are going to tie into his major commercial initiatives that he's not wavering on, that a lot of people just shelf to the side, that are the types of people that you're saying that have these great stories, but there's no substance behind them.
Man. We've hit a lot of things today. Kelly Warden on the Edge with Frank Dux and Keith Klinkhammer. I'm really excited, at least, to have this opportunity to bring this story public. Frank, if there's some couple things you could share right before we close, what do you got to say, brother?
I'd like to say in closing that I kind of live my life by a certain code, and it's a code of a warrior. And when you're a warrior, you're going to run up against enemies, and that's the reality. And if I have my enemies out there, great. Judge me by the caliber of my enemies. That's what I tell people. You'll find out, that what I stand for, as opposed to what they stand for, and I think you can define who I am by that. So, I am a controversial person. What can I say?
Right on, baby, right on. We're shaking it up here in Tacoma, Washington. Yeah, the home of KLEY, 1180 AM on your conversation dial. This is Kelly Warden with Frank Dux, Keith Klinkhammer. Sorry, Keith. Yeah, on the edge. Till next week, we'll be on the edge again. So fasten your seatbelt. Hold on. Go back to kellywarden.com and hear this show again. If you got questions, email me, Kelly S. Warden, WORDEN, at Comcast.net. We're out of here. Take care. Till next weekend. Kelly Warden signing off. Bye now.
Listening to On the Edge with Kelly Warden. Email your thoughts, questions, or comments to Kelly S. Warden at kellyswarden@comcast.net. Don't miss On the Edge next Saturday and every Saturday morning at 10.